Hello, everyone. My name is Christine, and I'm the host here at the Hungarian Heritage podcast, the show where we connect your modern life to your Hungarian heritage by building bridges and connecting the circles of Hungarians around us. This podcast is a place where everyone is welcome, where you don't even need to be Hungarian or speak Hungarian to join in on the fun. Each week, we will talk about all the things that we love about Hungary and Hungarian people. So, if you're looking to make that first connection to your Hungarian heritage, or you're looking to dive deeper, then this is the place to be. Thanks for joining us today. This episode of the Hungarian Heritage podcast is the second in a three-part series of guests who are all of Hungarian descent that were all born in the United States, but have three very different experiences about being a Hungarian American. In this series, we touch upon what their Hungarian connection has been throughout their lives so far, how they've stayed connected with their Hungarian heritage, and what that looks like for them going forward. In this second episode of the series, you will hear from Kat Royer, a first-generation Hungarian with one Hungarian parent, making her 50% Hungarian. You will hear how Kat grew up spending time in her father's Hungarian restaurant in Chicago, how the connection to her Hungarian heritage has changed, and not necessarily in a bad way, since she was a little kid. Most importantly, you will hear how Kat has turned her passion for her Hungarian heritage into a new blog called Paprikas Girl, and I'm sure you will want to check it out after hearing what she has to say about being an American girl with a Hungarian heart. Welcome to this episode of the Hungarian Heritage Podcast. I would like to welcome Kat Royer, an American girl with a Hungarian heart, and she is the creator behind Paprikas Girl. Welcome, Kat. Thanks so much for being here today.
Christine, thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about Paprikas Girl and that endeavor. But before we talk about that, let's talk about your Hungarian heritage, like how you're Hungarian, how much Hungarian you are. The backstory of your life really leads to why you started Paprikas Girl, which we'll get into later. So tell us about your Hungarian heritage. Who's Hungarian in your family?
I am split 50-50. I mean, right down the middle. I am second generation Hungarian.
Okay.
My mom's American, Southern girl from Georgia. And then you've got my dad from Hungary, out of Győr.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm 50-50 as well. So American mom, dad from Hungary. So we're in the same boat. So when did your dad come over to the U.S. and like what year? How did it happen for him?
It's a long story. It's always a long story, right?
Oh, yeah, it's always a long story.
It's all interesting, right? But, a lot of people say, my parents were 59ers.
Right.
My dad was born in Hungary in 1949. So he was 10 years old when the revolution happened. And one thing I never asked him, and now this has really come up, why didn't they try to escape? I don't know the answer to that, but they stayed.
Right.
My whole dad side of the family, they stayed, they stuck it out. And when my dad turned about 20, 21, now, keep in mind, he was a wrestler, a national wrestler for Hungary, and he was granted permission to leave Hungary and go to Vienna for competition. And when he left for competition, and he didn't tell anybody what was going on, what he was planning on doing, on his teammates, on his brother, family, nothing. He just defected. He didn't go back. He just took the clothes on his back and just rolled with it. So he bounced around refugee camps in Vienna, Germany. He was actually learning German. He was trying to stick around that area. Right. And about 3 or 4 years into this jumping around, he was sponsored to go to the U.S.
Wow.
He didn't know any English. He was like, well, I guess my visa's running out and I got to go. So he jumped a plane and they sponsored him to come over to the U.S. And now he's a dual citizen. He was in the U.S. for a little under 50 years before moving back. So,
wow. I mean, it is an interesting story. I think everybody has a similar yet different story.
Yeah.
Like the roots of the story are similar, and I like what you said, to go back to your point, some people stayed and some people left. And I can't speak for everyone. I feel like people stayed because maybe they were hopeful that, it wouldn't continue. And then there were people that left, like my grandparents and dad, because my grandmother's name was on a list because she was feeding, the revolutionary soldiers out the back of the place where she worked. So her name got put on a list for being a sympathizer. So, yeah, that was like a 24-hour turnaround. Like, my name's on a list. Gotta go. So I feel like everybody has like a different reason for leaving and a different time for leaving. But wow, what an experience. Like, how old was your dad when this happened?
He was 20 or 21. He kind of goes back and forth.
Yeah.
But he thinks he was roughly 21 when he left.
Wow. Think about that. Like, as a 21-year-old, that's a lot to go through, to not tell people, to, oh my gosh, just leave, like leave your family, leave your country with no plan.
Yeah. Everything you know. Yeah.
Wow. It's like so brave, I feel, when people go through these trials and tribulations in life. And I feel like we're very lucky that we haven't had to experience those things.
So true. So true.
Your dad made it to the US after 3 years. Tell us a little bit about his experience when he got here. Like, where did he live? Who sponsored him? How did he meet your mom? All that stuff. Tell us about his story, because it's your story too.
Sure. Well, I feel like it's a story within a story, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, honestly, still gathering we'll call them facts.
Okay.
Still gathering the facts of this story and what happened behind it. But he actually landed in New York, and it was a country that had sponsored him, and it was a very odd, like off the box, like Lithuania that sponsored him to go to the US. I don't know why. He doesn't know why. But he was sponsored to go, and he didn't know any English. He had a paper bag of money, and that was it. They put him in a hotel for, I think he said about 10 to 14 days. And after that, it was kind of like, you're on your own. Figure it out, go get a job. And he did. He was a painter. He was a plumber. He got somehow into the pharmaceutical business. Now, back in that day, we didn't have Facebook group events,
Right. Mm-hmm.
But they did make it very well known that we have, hey, look, come here. If you're an immigrant, come to this meeting. We're going to help you find a job. We're going to help you get on your feet.
Right.
And he did that. I mean, he didn't take a shortcut.
Right.
And I think there's definitely something to be said for that. So in the long run, he, without going into too much detail into any one thing he did, he ended up moving to Chicago. Probably a friend of his or something kind of got him out there. And at that point, he had made enough money or enough savings and had figured out, put your money in the bank.
Right.
Not in a brown paper bag in the back seat.
Right.
So he ended up opening up a couple of bars. He had, and a lot of people will know this. If you're in Chicago and you grew up, or you were maybe going to Loyola University in the 90s, you knew what the Charlar was. The Charlar was where you went.
Okay.
So pretty well known bars. And then he tried a pizza business. Oh, catch this. He tried the pizza business.
That's funny.
Have you ever had a Hungarian pizza? It's not the same as the Chicago or a New York pizza. So that did not go very well for the American taste buds. And he was like, what am I doing? And he opened up the Paprikas, which is the only Hungarian restaurant in Chicago at the time. So,
which to me is fascinating. When you told me that was the only Hungarian restaurant, well, you didn't tell me. I read it on your page, because there are a lot of Hungarians in the Chicago area. So how was there no other restaurant or bar? So I feel like it was a great opportunity was waiting for him in Chicago.
Yeah. Absolutely. I agree. And it's just one of those things that I think the Hungarian hospitality kind of came out at him when he had the bars. And then when he just doubled down on that restaurant, I mean, you could just feel the love, the Hungarian hospitality.
I feel like talking about like Hungarian hospitality, that food equals love to Hungarian people. So I feel like he hit the nail on the head with that, with the Paprikas restaurant. So let's talk about that restaurant. What was it like? You experienced that as well, no?
Oh, yeah. So he had the restaurant, he started the Paprikas. Again, this is all like it's not like we have records or Facebook, something
I
to
know.
remind you of when something happened, but we believe it was the late 90s. I was born in 89.
Okay.
So I was probably middle
Right.
school-ish. Growing up in that restaurant environment, I mean, it was a pretty small restaurant. I mean, it's all you could afford. It was a small little place, about 100 seats. But the food that they cranked out was just,
Oh,
oh man, you
I
smelled the garlic as soon as you walked in.
oh, I know. I'm
um,
hungry now just thinking of it.
oh, me too. But yeah, I mean, I loved it. I mean, it was always dad would pick me up from school. We'd go to the Paprikas, get a meal, do my homework. If I
Not a
were
bad
lucky,
place.
yeah, right. If I were lucky, I get to go behind the bar and make myself a Shirley Temple.
Ooh, that
So,
was big stuff. Wow. How
so
exciting to be able to sit at the table in the restaurant and do your homework. You know, you're definitely getting fed some really good food, right? Or whatever's on the menu that night. Oh my
yeah.
goodness. So what were some of your favorite dishes that, your dad made in the restaurant?
Hands down, the gypsy steak was my
Okay.
favorite.
Wow.
I mean,
Tell
you
us
could
about
always
that.
have like the schnitzel or whatever, but this gypsy steak, I mean, for what, a 12-year-old kid? Like, who eats that? I did. I loved it.
Tell us about that.
um,
Tell us what the gypsy steak is for those who don't know that are listening.
oh, okay. Yes, absolutely. So usually it's a very tender cut of pork. It kind of looks like a steak, but it's
Right.
not. And this is maybe my opinion, but I think the Hungarians do a really good job of taking something that maybe isn't much and making it into a lot, or making it into something really special
I
in terms
agree.
of food. Maybe they don't have a lot to give, and so you talk about food being a really big part of their hospitality. And how much it means to them. But I mean, when you have something that's just as simple as a piece of pork that is sauteed in garlic and paprika and salt and pepper, and it's done just so on the skillet with some spetzel or potatoes with the parsley potatoes. Oh gosh,
Oh,
yeah. Oh, I'm really hungry now.
yeah.
And then couple that with like some langos or something. Yeah, it's insane how simple the meal is, but how good and filling and heartwarming it is. So
Oh,
that by far
absolutely.
was my favorite.
Yeah, we definitely have to cook something Hungarian tonight. I feel like I'm craving it now.
Inspiration.
Exactly. So, was your dad's restaurant, the Paprikas, in a Hungarian community? Like, who were the patrons mostly? Were they Hungarian people or just the average culture that was
Oh,
coming in?
that's
Or,
a really great question. I think we got all walks of life that came in.
okay,
But surprisingly enough, I mean, it wasn't, yes, we had Hungarians come in, of course.
of course.
But even we had Polish, Ukrainian,
Yeah,
everybody kind of in that region or that area of the world kind of said, hey, that kind of tastes like home, just a
yeah.
little bit. And I some of the best patrons were actually Polish. So
Yeah. Oh, that's so nice. Yeah. And you made a great point because a lot of the food is similar. They might call it something different, but
sure.
rice and peas, you can find that all over Eastern Europe. They just call it something different. Stuffed cabbage, similar. They make it, they
Mhm.
just call it something different. So I'm sure it tasted like home for them. Yeah,
Oh,
that's amazing.
absolutely.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's so cool. So now, do you have any special moments that stick out for you while your dad owned that restaurant? Like any particular day, or if there was an event there that just sticks in your mind?
You know, being that my dad had the only Hungarian restaurant in Chicago, he was pretty well connected in that industry. And
Okay.
what I thought was really neat was he would have, he would go to Hungary, we'd visit Hungary from time to time, and
Right.
he'd find a violinist or some kind of musician and have them come over and
Right.
play in the restaurant. And I
Nice.
think my favorite, it's not a moment, I would say it's probably a collection of moments where there would be a violinist kind of in the corner doing some really very Hungarian song or a gypsy song or, something of that nature that just really put the food, the smell, the sound, all the senses kind of came together at once you had that live music in the restaurant.
Right. I feel like
Mhm.
it transports people back to feeling like they're in
Yes.
Hungary or, in Poland, like that connection to their homeland when you had all of those elements together.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
feel like that probably made a difference, on those evenings. You said when you visited Hungary with your dad. Now, did you do that a lot as a kid, more so now? Tell us about that.
Uh, I feel like I did when I was a kid a lot. And then there was a moment, and I guess it's just life, right? You start going to high school and college, and your
Sure.
priorities are put onto, oh my gosh, I have to be an adult now. And so, you don't have the funds or the means to do that. So I would
Mhm.
say more when I was a kid, and then definitely more now, but there was a little lull in between. And I have to say it says a lot about my mom. She let my dad just take me, just go, honey, go.
Ah,
Take her as
that's
much
so
as
great.
possible. Yeah, it was neat. So like every spring break or summer break, there would always be a month or at least a week or two where I get to go over once a year, maybe once every other year when I was a kid.
That's great. It's great that she supported that side of your heritage,
Absolutely.
and that she let your dad not that she let your dad, but like,
Well,
that
yeah, yeah.
she encouraged your dad.
Encouraged.
Yeah,
Mhm.
to make that deeper connection, which is pretty amazing. So now your dad moved back to Hungary when he retired and he closed the restaurant. So
Mhm.
tell us about that. How did that all happen for him? And what made him decide to move back to Hungary?
Yeah, kind of a bittersweet story, to be honest with you. He
Okay.
had the Paprikas, and then he doubled down about 2005. He closed the Paprikas and opened a bigger restaurant called the Epicurean Hungarian Restaurant. It was a little bit more in the suburbs of Chicago, and it was actually an old Red Lobster building. So it really went from like 100-seat, small
Right.
little tavern looking, restaurant to a standalone. And then 2008 happened, the market crashed, people weren't trying new things, they weren't necessarily spending their money on going out, so
Right.
he kept it open for as long as he could, and ended up closing it, we think, around 2010, 11.
Okay.
And he was like, you know what, it's time to make the money stretch a little further.
Right.
I need to go back to Hungary. I knew that was always in my life plan anyway, and here's
Right.
my opportunity. Let's just do it. So he was able to buy a small house in Rabachecing, and which is about 20 minutes south of here. And he's back there, retired. I think happy. I think he misses it. He misses the rush of the restaurant and bar industry. But
Sure.
you know what? 73 years old. It's time for him to just focus on making the palinka.
Absolutely. The Huzzy Palinka, right?
That's right.
Homemade. So I feel like if you don't move somewhere, like, or immigrate somewhere, I can't understand what that pull would feel like. So I imagine people like your dad and, my family who left under whatever circumstance they left, there is that little bit of pull that they miss it, that they would want to move back and go back if they're able.
Right.
So it's nice that your dad had that opportunity to go back and experience, living in Hungary again as a retired man. It opens up opportunities too for you because now you have a place to go,
Oh my gosh.
right?
Well, to be fair, I always had a place to go, but it gives me that extra push.
Right,
Absolutely gives me the extra push
right,
to go back and just fully integrate my adult life into
right,
the Hungarian
right.
life.
All of these life events that happened to you just from when you were born up until, your dad moving back is really the catalyst for your current endeavor as the creator behind the Paprikash Girl blog. Clearly, we know what inspired you because you just told us. So tell us what pushed you to the point where I'm going to start a blog. I'm going to make this part of my life. How did that happen for you? Tell us a little bit about that.
Uh, wow. Another great question. Yeah, I mean, obviously you can see the story behind it. But as an adult looking back on it, and then having these adult conversations now with my dad, and really putting these puzzle pieces together of exactly what happened to him, when, why, and seeing like, oh my gosh, like this story is not normal. It's not a story I've ever heard before specifically. And when I talk to my friends about this story of my father or me going to Hungary all the time or whatever, they're like, "You're kidding." I'm like, "No, I'm not kidding."
Yeah.
I'm not kidding.
Right.
And my conclusion is that it's an interesting enough story to share with everyone. And I think people don't know Hungary. It's not as big as it used to be, obviously, but there's still a lot to share about the country and about the heritage and about everything that they've gone through as a country. And then kind of the one story through my father that just kind of blooms the whole inspiration behind it.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about. A lot.
Gosh, yes.
So much.
You could go down so many different avenues.
Sure, absolutely. And I'm sure you've found this too, because you mentioned that when you speak to your friends, they're like, wow, wow, right? I mean, so many people don't realize how amazing this average sized country in Europe is. They don't realize the depth of places to see, the baths, the wineries, because they're just unaware. And when we talk about it, they're like, oh, wow, that really happened. Wow, they have that there. Yeah. It's a pretty amazing country with a lot to offer. So I feel like your blog has a lot of information to share with people, especially with people who may have never been to Hungary before, to like dig a little deeper, because your blog posts really have covered a lot of amazing things, and like not just the things in Budapest, like we talked about.
Right.
There's so much more outside. It's definitely a place you could visit so many times and still not see everything. Similar to New York City. You can go a million times and still never see the same thing because there's a lot to look at. So one of your blog posts, let's talk about that, because I feel like it's such a great example of what you have to offer on your blog. And that was the blog post about the Tokaj wine region. I feel like you did such a great job of reporting out where to go, how to get around. So I'm going to let you tell us about that blog post, because I feel like if someone is looking to go to Hungary, that's information they could definitely use. And I have to point out as well, it's not just people who've never been to Hungary. I feel like there are people who live in Hungary that may or may not have gone out to that region, just like there are places in the United States we haven't gone to. So it's helpful to have this information. So I'm going to let you tell us about it. So tell us how you did all that research about those wineries and how to get around.
That was actually really difficult. So I'll go with, this was always a bucket list item for my father. He's been talking about the Tokaj wine region for, probably a decade,
right?
Maybe longer. And we just had the opportunity at the last time I visited this past summer. We were going to be in the area anyway, and I said, "Dad, let's just do it. Let's just take a couple of days. Let's head out there. It's only an extra hour. Let's go for it." And he said, "You know what, honey, you plan it. My little Kishlania, you plan it, and
oh my goodness, so cute.
And we'll go."
Good.
And what I thought was really one of the reasons that was one of my first blog posts is because there is just not enough information about Tokaj on the internet.
No.
And it's really hard to plan a visit. There's hundreds of wineries to go to.
Right.
And there's just nobody that has given enough itineraries or information that you can mimic or use that as a base to what you want to do. And so how I got the information that I got, going to the Tokaj website, the wet tourism website, was very helpful. But believe it or not, there was another couple, and I wish I knew the name of their blog. And it really just bothers me that I don't remember. But they have a blog, a travel blog, not just for Hungary, but just general travel in Europe.
Right.
And they went and they kind of gave a very vague itinerary of what they did with some photos and stuff like that. And I was like, and they said, you have to use a driver, get a driver. They have a wine bus. They are figuring out the wine bus in Tokaj, but we were not there during the right time. It's seasonal. So go to this website, go find this person, email them. And so I started there. And I'm like, thank heavens, somebody else has gone to the Tokaj wine region and wrote about it. I was like, we need more people doing that. But again, it's one of those things, you go to Tokaj wine region and go to 4 wineries and then have a totally different experience the next time you go, going to garage wineries.
Right, exactly. And I feel like what you said is that there really isn't a lot of information out there yet. If you've ever been out to Napa in California, all that stuff's mapped out for you now. Like you can find, the wine buses and like the private drivers and things like that. I feel like this is still a very untapped area, and it's really just as big as far as the wineries and the opportunities you could go to in the Tokaj wine region. So tell us a little bit more about how you arranged your trip.
So like I said, went to the tourism website, and I ended up being connected with a driver who is from the Tokaj wine region. He knows a lot about the Tokaj wine region, and he was able to help. I gave him a list of the pinceres, the wineries that I thought looked the most interesting, based on my internet research. And he says, I don't know, Kat, like I'm with you on a couple of these. I definitely agree. You have to, they're staples, but let's throw in a couple of smaller ones and let's do this. And let me take you here. And he really helped me develop that trip.
That's great.
So you need kind of boots on the ground, so to speak.
Sure.
And he was able to line up the timing of every winery. And he actually did all of the tour because he was just so immersed in the Tokaj wine region.
That's great.
So that by far was how I did it. That was how I did it.
Yeah. So you know what? We'll definitely put that in the show notes, like in addition to your blog information. But that information, is that connected to your blog? The driver that you used, the people that you contacted?
Yes.
Okay, yes. Great. So because I want to point that out to the listeners that, Absolutely. If they're going to be in Hungary, your blog post will give them all the information you just talked about. Yes. So you also picked a place to stay. Tell us about that, because I feel like that was a key part where you stayed.
Well, you don't have to stay in the town of Tokaj to go. I mean, the wine region is huge, right. And it's not just Tokaj. There's Mod and all the different kind of connecting regions that make up, all the different towns that make up the region. There we go. Right. And, but I decided, I was like, no, Dad has said Tokaj to me about 500 million times. We are staying in the town of Tokaj. And I ended up finding most of these, there's no huge hotel anywhere in this area. Okay. Which I kind of like. It kind of gives you the authenticity that you need. So this is actually a restaurant, Labor. Okay. Is a restaurant, and they have, I'd say, probably about 10 or so rooms upstairs. So much to my dad's poor heart, he had to climb several stairs to get up there. Wow. It was very lovely, very very clean, very air conditioned.
That's key.
Thank you, isn't it?
That's key.
Air conditioned. And then when you needed a coffee in the morning, you just pop downstairs. That's awesome. And the driver was able to, our tour guide / driver, picked us up every morning and took us where we needed to go. No drinking and driving here.
Right. No, absolutely not. I noticed in your blog post when you mentioned about the location where you stayed, you talked about how it was pretty central to like banks and other like little shops. So I feel like that particular blog post about the Tokaj wine region really gives someone who, if they have absolutely no information about visiting this region whatsoever, your blog post hits all the points, because those are things that I would look for. I would look for, how do I get around? Where can I stay? And the place that I'm staying, is it close to a store if I need to get, an item, maybe places to eat, a bank, because those are all things that are important. You want to make sure that you have access to those types of amenities.
Absolutely.
And your other blog posts are similar. They're not all about wineries. So Tell us a little overview of what the blog posts are. We don't want to give away too much because we want people to visit the blog, which we'll talk about. But what's your vision for this blog going forward?
the inception of the blog, they always say you need to have like some kind of a niche, right? I mean, there has to be information that people need, people want, or But I'm having a hard time finding that niche because it's all about Hungary. Hungary as a whole, not just Budapest, not just the Tokaj wine region, not just, it's just about everything that you could think of. And from recipes to travel, talking about the culture, anything from any experience maybe that I had that maybe somebody else didn't have or can't have because they don't have family there or something like that. Stories. So I couldn't focus on just travel or just recipes. And so I'm kind of making it a compilation of everything.
I feel like that's great. Finding a niche is also great, but I feel like your niche is the blog.
Is Hungary.
It's the blog about Hungary. Like that's the niche. And, there's so many subcategories there that why leave one out? Why leave one out? Right? Food, places, restaurants, it could be all about that. So I feel like this is a great way to make that connection because, like I said before, even people that have lived in Hungary, that were born in Hungary, and I say, oh, have you ever been out to Lake Havies? They're like, no, I never actually made it out there. So even people that live in Hungary will find this information valuable because you've planned out a lot of the information, whether it's travel, a recipe. I mean, I think a lot of people are looking for good, authentic recipes too. But I feel like recipes are also very personal. It's kind of like the Italians with like their sauce, or some call it gravy. We won't get into that discussion, but just, making stuffed cabbage. Everybody has their own like little twist on it. Maybe your recipe that you post, if you're ever going to do a blog post about that, maybe that's going to hit somebody that says, oh, that's exactly how my mom made it, or that's exactly how my grandmother made it. And I was so upset that I never wrote down. And now I have Kat's recipe that looks so similar. So I feel like even though people have made blogs about travel and food, whatever, your experience is going to hit many people in different ways. And the experience of where you go, not everybody goes to the same places. So it will be new and exciting for even people that have been to those areas, because to go back to your Tokaj blog, there's how many wineries that you could have visited? You could do how many blogs on that, little combinations mathematically. So I think that you're off to a great start with this Paprikas Girl blog. So tell us, do you have any upcoming topics that you're going to be posting about?
Ooh, good one. I'm actually working on a couple of different recipes. And the interesting thing with the recipes portion of this is, is it ever really going to taste the same as what you get in Hungary? No, because the ingredients that we have here in the US are inherently different. Even the sour cream doesn't have as much fat as they do in Hungary. It's like, I know. So finding a way to tailor things to make it as authentic as possible, given the ingredients that we have here. Right. So that's something that I'm working on. Particularly, there's a little shop right near where my father lives, in the town of Enesha, and they have a bread truck that delivers shoshkifli twice a day. Wow. We were kind of talking this off the record, but shoshkifli is probably my favorite thing while I'm there, with some salami. It's my favorite breakfast. It's my favorite midnight snack. Anyway, I can try to replicate this bread, and that is in the works and coming soon.
A parallel story. I was in Italy recently, and the pasta and all the grains and the flours, it's different over in Europe. Mm-hmm. So when I got home over the summer, I'm like, oh my God, I want to make pasta. Have I made it yet? No, but I did buy flour from Italy, so that it would taste a little bit more authentic. And, maybe after things settle down, I will definitely attempt that, maybe in the winter when I have a little bit more time on my hands. But that could be an option too, where you investigate the flour from someplace, to make the bread, to make it taste a little bit similar to what you remember. And there's definitely a lot of Hungarian stores, whether they're online or places you can visit, that probably can connect you with good ingredients. So that's an option.
Yeah. Lots of research behind it.
the great part about your research is that you'll get to taste all the samples along the way. I'm jealous that I don't live closer to you.
Awful.
Because I definitely would have come for a taste testing day because, I'm all about that. So, wow. So, okay. So other than recipes, any other specific places in Hungary that you're looking to write about? Give us some teasers of what's coming out.
Balaton is going to be another.
Wow. That's a big one. I like it.
I know. There's actually a lot of things. It's not, look, there's Lake Balaton, there's Tihany, there's all the little towns around it. And that's wonderful. But there's actually some pit stops you can make on the way.
Okay.
Specifically from Győr, that's where a lot of my family is. So there's some really fun pit stops you can make, and I will not say anything more. But
that's right, because we're only teasing it.
That's right. It's a teaser.
It's a teaser.
So it's fun being there, right? It's fun getting to the destination. The destination is fun itself, but it's all about the way that you get there as well. So you enjoy the whole thing round trip.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm looking forward to that because I haven't done a lot when I visited Hungary around the Balaton. So I'm interested for your research so that I can use it for myself. So I'm looking forward to that. So this Paprikas Girl blog, I'm excited for you because I feel like you're going to be sharing a lot of information that people want to hear. And just from all of your stories and everything that you've said, I can really see that you have such, a Hungarian heart in your American Girl persona. And that's something that shouldn't be squashed. Keep going, keep posting, because I feel like it's an extremely interesting topic. And I feel like you're going to do a great job with really disseminating all that information to people. So
thank you.
Tell us.
I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, me too. I definitely see us, staying connected because I feel like we have a lot of similar goals, which is great. And I'm excited that we're now friends. This blog, it's clearly a dedication to your dad and his experience and your heritage. So I think that's such a lovely thing that you're doing this. Tell everyone how they can connect with you and where they can connect with you. And we'll obviously put that in the show notes, but tell everyone how we can connect.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. No, this is, and thank you. I'm really excited about this. It's definitely a passion project of mine. It's not about me getting anything out of it, really. It's just me wanting to share. And I appreciate you having me on today. But you can reach me. Instagram is probably the best. Paprikas Girl on Instagram. Facebook, I'm still developing, but feel free. I will check. And absolutely, please go to paprikasgirl.com. That is where my blog and all my information is.
Yeah. Well, I feel like you're very inspiring, and I think people are going to check it out, which is amazing. Don't forget to follow her on Instagram as well, because, that's where you can share the love, send some comments, and, hopefully people will let you know exactly how much they love what you're writing about. So Kat Royer, the American girl with a Hungarian heart, thank you so much for being here. Thanks for being the creator behind Paprikas Girl. Like I said before, I'm really excited about your future, and I'm looking forward to working with you as we go forward. I think it's going to be a great passion that we're both building. And this community that we've started, it's a great community. And I think they're going to be excited to hear all about you. Thanks a lot, Kat.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode about Kat Royer's Hungarian American experience. And I hope that her words have inspired you to check out her blog and maybe even plan a trip to the Tokaj wine region using the curated guide on her blog. Whether you're looking to dive deeper, take your first trip to Hungary, or make your first connection to your Hungarian heritage, Kat Royer's blog, Paprikas Girl, is a great place to start because, after all, she is an American girl with a Hungarian heart. Thanks to my audio editor, Tori Irvin, for working her audio magic on this episode. Our theme music is Hungarian Dance by Pony Music, used with a special license from Envato Market. Thanks again for listening, and don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts so we can continue to connect our modern lives with our Hungarian heritage. Until next time, goodbye everyone. Sziasztok mindenkinek!